It is my pleasure to introduce Mr. Sir S. Venkatesh, a key member of the Group Management Board and President of Group HR in RPG Group. With over 37 years of experience across MNCs and other diversified sectors. The RPG Group, also known as the Rama Prasad Gonika Group, is an Indian industrial and service firm headquartered in Mumbai. The topic of his keynote addresses will be crafting the dream workplace for today and tomorrow, exploring the essential elements that foster productivity, innovation, and well-being in today's evolving work environment. Please join me in welcoming Mr. S. Venkatesh to the stage. I would also like to call our Head of Center for Career Development to felicitate Mr. S. Venkatesh.
Always a rhinoceros. Thank you. Thanks. Okay, I think it's time to start. Sorry, I was taking some time getting the tech in place. Good afternoon, everybody. How are you? Good afternoon. Can you hear me loud and clear? Okay, thank you. Thank you for your attention. I'm going to do a very different session from what you've just heard. The whole idea is, how do we actually start looking at companies? I think, the lady before me was asking you a very relevant question, is what is the criterion that you use to choose your future employer? So I think taking off from that theme, this entire presentation is going to speak about what is it that companies are trying very hard to do today. And I'll give you the context, because there is a global context which is emerging, which is going to affect each one of us, including technology companies. And however great a technology leader you are, at the end of the day, if you don't create the right organization, you will not succeed too far. Your longevity will be pretty limited. So on the screen, so ladies and gentlemen, let me reintroduce myself. I think the lady did speak about me, but let me give out some relevant facts. I am the global CHRO of the RPG Group. The RPG Group is an interesting conglomerate. It is a 200-year-old legacy conglomerate, but at the same time, it is pretty much keeping in step with the times. We have some cutting-edge startups, technology businesses within a 200-year-old legacy organization. We are a diversified conglomerate. We have 7 different businesses, and we've grown through multiple acquisitions over the last 100-odd years. And what we are trying to do is to create a very different corporate DNA. We are a very proud Indian heritage organization. And it's also a bit of a story that I want to tell you about myself, that I started off my life in marquee, blue chip, multinational corporations, pretty much like the presentation you just heard about NetApp. And at a certain period in time, I think it was the early 2000s, I took a conscious call that the future, the axis is going to really shift to Asia. And really speaking, a lot of the global companies are going to emerge out of countries like South Korea, India, China. And therefore, the whole concept of a multinational gets reversed. You don't have to have a headquarters in London or Rotterdam or in the US to be able to call yourself, or you don't have to be in San Jose to be a multinational. You can be in Mumbai, you can be in Delhi, you can be in Shanghai, you can be in Seoul, and still be a great global corporation. So the GIF that you see here is real images from our company, from our diverse businesses. And I want to talk to you over the next 30 minutes or 25 minutes. I don't want to be too long, because I think I've realized over the years, and I was telling Professor Pandey, that beyond 20, 25 minutes, I think attention spans start coming down. I don't want to bore you, and I rather keep some time for Q&A. I want you to listen attentively to what I'm saying. It's not a technology presentation. It is a very different presentation that I deliberately kind of curated for you. It is about what kind of company that you need to work for. You see, technology can either be created or it can be bought. And we are now living in times today which are quite bizarre. where there is easy money. You can actually go and buy companies from the market if you have a lot of money. You can be a private equity player, you can be a pension fund, you can be the government, and you can buy technology. But to create culture, to create the right kind of talent profile, you just can't buy it. It will take you decades to create it, and that's really the value proposition that you should be looking for when you choose a company. Now, all of these people over there, these gents and ladies, work in different parts of the world in RPG. And I'll just take you in the next 15 minutes about what we do. So the topic given to me by Professor Pandey was something about workplace. He said, I said, listen, this whole future of work and how things have changed post-COVID has become pretty much a much beaten, done to death topic. And therefore, I wanted to ask you, if you are willing tomorrow as either employees or as entrepreneurs, many of you, most IIT graduates do have that very brilliant streak in becoming entrepreneurs. Will you be curating the dream workplace for today and tomorrow? So please think about it. And a lot of it is in your hands. And a lot of us join companies thinking that you can't change things, but that's a fallacy, and I'll tell you how we are constantly engaging our employees to change things. So, just keep in mind that, a lot of things have changed in the last 5-6 years. COVID particularly has brought about some dramatic changes. Now, you all know, you're reading in the papers about how a lot of companies are still practicing the hybrid workplace, and I will talk to you about how we, a predominantly brick and mortar company, we still practice hybrid or remote working policy very actively. But flexibility, to be able to have a flexible work life and work-life balance is becoming a need which all our people are expressing, all our future employees are expressing whenever they come to us looking at us as a potential employer. Inclusive and diverse work environment. Gone are the days when people would put up with working for very bigoted companies or biased companies which had a bias against women or LGBTQ or groups of people who were not so-called mainstream. I think many of you would not want to work for a company which has such prejudices. Am I correct? Will you work for a company which has strong biases? And the biased mindset does not stop at gender. It does not stop at sexual orientation. It will go into areas till you become like them. So you don't want to work for a company where everybody's like a clone of each other, but you want to work for a company which celebrates diversity. Investment in technology, I think that's a no-brainer. I'm preaching to the choir. You are the guys who will be driving some of this in all these companies. And sustainable working practices. I think you heard ESG being mentioned. By the way, I just want to tell you that ESG went up. There's also a lot of controversy surrounding the word ESG. So if you read the trends today, a lot of companies are scaling down on mentioning about ESG as a word. It's not necessary to publish it in your annual reports, but sustainability, social good, and ensuring governance is definitely part of the work that you have to do in an organization. So let's look at what else is happening in the world. Now, somebody wrote a fabulous article. It was, I think, a McKinsey consultant who, before COVID happened, he predicted that the world will enter into an era where you will have long periods of uncertainty. Now, when we entered into COVID, I think it was February or March 2020, none of us knew when the light at the end of the tunnel would appear. And we were surprised that by the end of 2020, some relief came. Then in India, the second wave happened, the third wave happened. So there was a lot of us who thought, listen, when is this going to end? And it took almost 3 years for the world to come back to normal. Now, the prediction, and it's a very scary prediction, which all of you should be aware of, futurologists, epidemiologists, people who are in power, people who know what's happening, they're all saying that we will have recurring periods like this, again and again and again. Now, it's a very scary thought. You thought you're done with one COVID in your lifetime, but there could be other issues. It could be a protracted war. You are seeing already so many war clouds around the world, and some of them can escalate into something super serious at a global scale. Now, what is expected of all of us, including people like you, and for a minute, please don't think as technologists, think of yourself as future leaders of organizations. Even if you're going to be a technology leader, you're still a leader. You are going to be required to have huge amount of resilience and navigate you and yourself and the team through this long tunnel, and you will not see the light at the end of the tunnel for a long period. You've got to get used to it. Now, what's happening? Geopolitical tensions. Ukraine war is just dragging on and on. Nobody knows when it's going to end. Hamas, Iran conflict. Every day there's a new hotspot. And we don't know when the world will return back to quote unquote normal, if there was any such state in the past. There's huge amount of profitability. So nobody is going to allow you to float free ideas. I mean, a lot of you are extremely brilliant people. But when you get into an organization, proof of concept, has this worked? I know it's a great idea, but you've got to get the money in. If you do not prove the profitability, slowly things are going to move away from you in terms of budgets or access to tools. There's a big shift in workplace culture. And don't get deluded by what you are hearing that, companies, there were large IT companies which said 25% of our workforce only in future will work from the office. Now, some of those companies, I don't want to name them, declared all 5 days as physical work. And there is one such large company in India which lost 100,000 people last year. And guess what? No prizes for guessing. 80% of that 100,000 were women, because they were the ones most affected by lack of flexibility. Then moonlighting was a big word. Remember moonlighting? Just about 1 year back, there was a big controversy whether to allow it, not allow it. And companies said, no, it is unethical. One or two companies which were flexible or wanted to be on the cool bandwagon immediately announced that we are fine with moonlighting. But nobody had an answer about ethics, about proprietary information, about the work that you are creating is IPR for the company. How will you protect it if you work for 6 employers? Nobody had an answer. So I think it's going to emerge once again. The other question is lifelong employment. I think for a lot of you, that might seem like a ridiculous concept. But employers, a lot of employers today still think that they are offering a job and therefore people should work for them forever. And the whole concept of loyalty is something which is still bandied about in organizations. It is an important concept, but you've got to be loyal to your work, your skill sets, but not necessarily to one employer. So I think please choose a company which kind of resonates with your value systems. There's a massive talent war which is happening. Some talent, you heard talk about Gen AI and all of that. I think those are going to go through the roof. We were hearing, if you heard of Singularity University, have you heard of Singularity University? Any one of you? It's the foremost think tank in the world which offers some amazing programs, research topics to owners of companies. So I know one owner who owns a very large conglomerate who went for the program, and he listed the jobs which are going to get threatened by AI. And guess what? Right on top, there are jobs like legal professionals. The entire entertainment media industry can get seriously disrupted by AI. Now, how much of it will come true? How much of it is hype? Can the human mind ever be replaced, and so on and so forth? This is a debate which is very interesting. But the fact of the matter is that even technology skills and technology professionals will be made redundant by certain aspects of AI. So the whole IT services industry needs to watch out, and we own an IT services company ourselves, so we're very watchful about what is it that we need to do in terms of skill upgradation. Now, I'm going to not give you theory and a lot of gyan about what's happening, geopolitics and all of that. I thought I'll share with you a very real-life example of my own company. And therefore, I can stand before you in confidence and speak about what we've done rather than, there's so much of information out there. I don't want to bore you guys about what's available in the public domain or on, on the internet or on YouTube, but about our own happiness journey. And the word happiness, you must be hearing it a lot of times today by companies. Everybody wants to offer happiness. But I'll tell you what our unique journey is. And I want you to please look at this and ask me some questions. Feel free to ask me some difficult questions. And you should actually look at this as some kind of a filter for you to apply when you look at organizations that you want to be part of going forward. Now, what we've tried to do is, there is a world which is full of uncertainty, but how do you bring in happiness as both a means and an end? I think for a lot of companies it's a means, and happiness is used in a superficial manner. Even soft drink companies, they talk about uncorking a bottle of happiness, one bottle at a time, and so on and so forth. About 6 years back, when we unveiled our new vision, we said, hello, happiness is our tagline. But we said we must define this and make it far more authentic and far more deeper than just a very superficial definition of happiness. I'm going to play you a video, which is, again, a very real-life video, which shows a lot of people from our own companies, and of course there are professional models in it. And the whole messaging is, happiness is like a pandemic. Unfortunately, COVID was the pandemic, but if you had happiness as the pandemic in the world, we'll be much better off. And how does it spread from human to human? And how does an organization become known for this is what this video shows.
When you work in a happy place, you make the world a happier place. RPG. Hello, happiness.
Okay, so that really were some of our smiling faces in the company. And what we did is, about 6 years back, we adopted happiness at a huge scale across 40,000 people. And I'll tell you how we went about doing it. So we asked about 10,000 people, about 6,000 people responded saying what happiness means to them from a company, employee, manager, leader perspective. We also did 250 employee inciting interviews. Now, employee inciting, for some of you who understand marketing, is very similar to customer inciting. It is the exact opposite of statistical sampling. The technology is that you go deep, that you ask fewer people, and you get very highly qualitative responses. So people really came out with very deep explanations about what they are expecting from an organization. I did the inciting interview personally with Harsh Goenka, my boss, who's the chairman of the group, saying, listen, Harsh, your family owns this company for 200 years. What does happiness mean to you as a chairman, as an owner, as 51% plus equity holder of this group, each of these companies? What does it mean to you? So some of the things that we found were quite fascinating. And therefore, we came out with a very strong 6 themes-based happiness framework, which we believe is very proprietary. There is no company in the world who adopts this as the primary means of employee engagement of this scale. A lot of smaller companies use this and talk about it, but please feel free to Google and see. In fact, when I was speaking to Gallup, all of you know, is a very famous global consulting organization, and checked with them whether they're willing to partner with us. They said, listen, Venky, can you sell it to us because it's such a great product for us to monetize in corporate consulting? Eventually, we went with Mercer, but Mercer didn't develop it. They are only partnering with us to run this. What we do is we run a happiness survey in each of our businesses, each of our functions globally across 40,000 RPGNs to get what we call an HQ, a happiness quotient. The happiness quotient is not just a number, but there's a lot of insight about what people are expecting, what did they find good about the company, what is it that we can do better. So that really drives us from year to year. We did our usual trysts with Gallup and Great Places to Work and all those kind of off-the-shelf tools. But somehow our people said, listen, we'd like to define what is happiness to us, and therefore we would like you to tell us how you can create a happy workplace. Now, so anything that we do today, whether it is in the term of an employee policy or practices or even going down to nitty-gritty like compensation policies, we use happiness as a means. So what gets measured gets done, and therefore when we do the happiness quotient, we are very, very clear about measuring the outcome of all our actions. Now, a lot of companies think that you just have to keep on doing the right good things for you to get happiness as a culture. There's a lot of stuff that creates unhappiness in companies. Foremost amongst them being harassment. A lot of you who worked before coming to IIT will know that harassment of any kind, and I'm talking about sexual harassment, it could be harassment based on community or region. So we are very, very almost zero tolerance on any kind of harassment, not almost, we are zero tolerant on harassment. So what we've done is we've got a very strong ombudsman, where by just dropping in a message to ethics@rpg.in globally, we take up all kinds of issues that people are facing. There is a 24/7 R shield, which we have gone beyond sexual harassment to look at, like I said, harassment based on regional identity. You can't say that you're from this part of the country and therefore, how did you come to this position? We thought people from your region or your community or your caste can't make it. So those are absolutely taboo. We don't allow any kind of debate on that. And of course, mental health and wellness we started during the pandemic. We offer it to 40,000 employees and their families free of cost. So that initiative still continues. So this is a busy slide, but I just want to talk to you about, we have put all our happiness initiatives, policies, processes into something known as a happiness handbook. It's digitally available, and people can actually curate new policies and tell us what they want. I think this level of democratization has not been pretty common, particularly in non-technology companies. But we've really done it at a big scale. And we also have introduced something known as Dialogue 365, which is a continuous performance management system. I think people are telling us that, listen, we don't want to sit mid-year and final appraisal. Throughout the year, you tell us how we are doing and we'll tell you how we are doing. This is digitally kind of enabled. Fraternity is an interesting program. We have a large IT services company within RPG Group called Zensar, which is actually a New York headquartered IT company. And typically they hire thousands of people every year. We said, why don't we let our employees' children in other group companies who are engineers apply for that? No conglomerate has done that. Even Tata's, with due respects to them, they have TCS, which is a huge company. They do not have a structured program like this. This is a big hit. And people said, listen, but of course, it's all on merit. We don't give any preference to people just because they are employees' children. So there's a lot which is specifically you need to do. It's like, again, I'm repeating at the cost of repetition. Happiness is not just about doing things which is feel good, but some real authentic stuff that you need to do. Now, there is no conglomerate, to the best of our knowledge, across such diverse businesses, which has a promotion policy. The policy is very, very nimble-footed. It is pretty futuristic. We look at people in terms of what they bring to the table rather than just what they are worth in the market and kind of compensate them. And which means you can move across 100 geographies that we are present in, across the 7 businesses that you are in, through this promotion policy. And some of the stuff that we do in terms of career progression and compensation correction is quite radical. There's a lot of stuff that we've introduced over the years. There's just an example of a CEO award. What happens is rewards and recognition take too much time. By the time it goes through a jury, by the time it gets decided and it is given away on company day, it is 1 year. We've constituted a system called a CEO award where things are happening. The CEO doesn't have to consult anybody. It's just kind of given to somebody. Let's say in one of our factories there was a problem, there was an external issue which cropped up and there was danger to the lives of people working within the factory. And one such person took fantastic initiative to put the fire out. So instant recognition instead of waiting for the year end. Now, we are doing a lot in terms of bringing digital talent. We understand that AI, data analytics, all of this is really the skill of the future. So we run a program called Digital Talent Track actually, through Zen Labs, which is our R&D center in Zensar, our IT services company. More awards. How do you actually recognize and reward people who are creating happiness so that becomes the example for other people? We've also kind of accepted moonlighting in our own way, so that the only way you can actually legitimately allow moonlighting is when people work with certain boundaries in terms of how much proprietary information they have access to and they can't take out. And we have said that if you want to be a gig worker with us, convert your employment into gig, but continue to do the same job, but you move from being a full-time employee to gig, we are okay. So I think we found a practical solution. So the whole idea is not to say no, an absolute no, but to come out with pragmatic solutions. All right. So this is another thing that you should actually expect in a company that you work, that you will be probably inducted in an SME, subject matter expert role, coming from the background that you are from a IIT or whatever. But sooner than later, you should demand and ask, how do you become a leader of the company? So we have something known as an FLB, which is a shadow board. In each company, we have a future leaders board, which actually mimics the working of the company's board. And we believe that these people can tomorrow become the board members of the organization. And they are put through the entire rigmarole of what a typical executive committee of a company goes through, so that they are kind of fast-tracked to becoming future leaders. Okay, now I want to talk about, you heard this term diversity for quite some time, and I heard the previous presenter was talking very nicely about a lot of good stuff that they're doing for women employees. Now, what we've realized is over the years, our gender diversity was quite poor, but we worked hard on it, and we've kind of, at a stage when we believe that gender diversity is an ongoing activity, right? I mean, to ensure that our women employees and women leaders get their rightful place. But we want to now go beyond gender diversity, which is really the DEI agenda that people call it in organizations. So, for example, we went and hired a whole load of transgenders in our company. This was in the manufacturing operations in Seat, which is our tires company. And for us, it was not just a diversity or DEI imperative, it was also a social good. How many of us have seen transgenders begging at traffic signals, leading a sad life with no kind of self-respect? So we used an NGO to kind of get these people onto our manufacturing locations. Now the first week after they worked, they all ran away. So the NGO and the HR people in the plant went and asked them, what happened? Why did you go? They said, look, it's too much hard work for us. And secondly, what you pay us, in one day we earn 1 hour by begging. This was the answer, very pragmatic answer. So there was a lot of work which was done in telling them, listen, is this the way you want to lead your life? So today, I'm very proud to say that along with Tata Steel, which also did some great work in hiring of transgenders. In fact, they did excellent work which actually inspired us. We are one of the largest recruiters of transgenders, and these people are very physically strong because our tire operations does require some amount of manual working. It is not completely automated. and they bring in that physical strength, and now there is a community for them within the company which helps them cope with anything. And by the way, the interesting story is that the trade union, this is in our Bantu plant, were the most supportive. They said, sir, we will not spare anybody who ridicules or humiliates these people, leave it to us. So amazing support that we got for hiring of transgenders. And the LGBTQ agenda is for us a very, how do I put it? It's a very personal choice. So we don't go about talking about it as if it's a personal agenda of the company, but we are absolutely, again, zero tolerance when it comes to harassment of this community. And some years back, we were probably the first Indian conglomerate to craft a benefits policy for them, because we had to go and negotiate with the insurance companies to include them and their partners, which was not possible about 10 years back. So the insurance companies, even the PSU insurance companies, I can tell you, are far more enlightened today. We also put in what I think is probably one of the first in the country, heterosexual partners. We didn't have a benefits policy, and not too many companies still have it. Those of you who are in corporate can kind of check this around. We put that in place, and needless to say, the people who were affected by this positively were very happy. Now, we also want to go and hire people of diverse backgrounds. So we are telling HR people, don't look for typical MBA HR from XLRI, Tata Institute, IIM. Why don't you go and hire sociologists? Why don't you hire anthropologists? Why don't you hire people? So if you look at Indian companies which have gone overseas, including our own companies, I'm not criticizing others, but if you look at the large IT services companies, majority of the people are still desis. They may be sitting in New York or San Jose or wherever, but they still want to hire people who look and speak like us. So that is not true diversity. So there are some companies, and I can name those companies which have broken free from this. Cognizant, for example, broke away from this myth. They became a NASDAQ listed company. Their board became 60% white American. They still have a lot of Indians because the founders were Indians. But if you go and see a lot of companies, and I'm including our own companies, we are still work in progress on this front. We operate in 120 countries. But when we do a count with our leadership team saying, listen, tell us how many people are country managers who are Turkish or who are Arab or who are Brazilian and Mexican, the numbers are still low. So we want to get into that actual diversity, and gender diversity is important, but it's not the only important thing anymore. And disability, of course, people with disabilities, PWD as we call them, are very, very core to this whole diversity agenda. Now, we do a lot of work digitally, and therefore, this is something you should check out also when companies ask them, what is the level of digitization of processes, policies in your company, which get you a great experience working for that company. I mean, we have stuff like One RPG, which is our global intranet, which is a very sophisticated intranet. We now have a currency called Happiness Coin, which we've now rechristened as Happy Exchange, through which we have a portal where you can actually exchange all your R&R, rewards and recognition, into this Happiness Coin, which is linked to e-commerce sites like Amazon. And you can actually convert virtually anything that you have as a reward recognition into something which you can use for your personal use through these e-commerce sites. Grow at RPG, somebody spoke about opportunity. We have an opportunity marketplace. So again, you should ask this question, and I'm directing this question to all of you who are at the cusp of moving from an IIT into an organization. How can I grow in a company? The people will tell you we have an internal job placement board, but that's not enough. Today, a lot of growth is not necessarily vertical. Companies cannot give you a promotion every 2 years. Anybody who's telling you is selling you a pipe dream. They cannot do it. You'll have to expand horizontally. You'll have to get new skill sets. So we've democratized. People who've been in industry know that coaching, mentoring is a very top-down kind of initiative, which only the manager can decide. But we've now democratized such that a very junior person in one of our companies can reach out and say, listen, I really admire you. I've seen you in public forum. Can you be my coach? And of course, if the person has the time, he or she can actually be the coach. We also have a technology platform called Alumni Circle, where we've gone and hired back people. So anything that is happening in the company, we put it out on that. It's a connect to the alumni. We call it the Alumni Circle, and we've done what we call boomerang hires. This is our Welcome Back Home initiative. A lot of companies have an issue with taking back people who have left. We actually welcome it because we feel people who come back know the culture, they'll hit the ground running. Now, this is something which is interesting. This is nothing to do with RPG employees. We went and sponsored a research survey. Because we believe in the whole concept of happiness, we did it with an organization called UA. Never before has a happiness survey of the Gen Z population of this country has been undertaken. And 400 million, which is 40% of our population or a little less than that, is actually Gen Z. So not only did we want to understand the Gen Z of our company, what they thought, but also nationally. And I will, at the end of this presentation, leave a QR code on the screen. You can scan it and get the report. It's a very interesting report. It actually covers people like you. And you should hopefully resonate with some of the findings there. But very briefly, I'll tell you what it says. Some of the insights, I think Gen Z are talking about emotional health a lot. Are you guys also worried about that a lot in the times that you live in? Is it something important to you or not important to you? Important? Okay. This is what we are hearing. And a lot of people are talking about financial independence at a young age. Nobody wants to be a slave till you're 58, 60, retirement age, mental health, societal values. Now, this is an interesting thing. People do not want to work for companies just because they are a great brand. And I want to say something which is a little controversial. In fact, I wrote an article on this on LinkedIn. It's called Fantastic Founders and When to Lose Them. And I covered companies like Uber in the early days. So you please think about, you will work for a great brand, but not necessarily a great employer. And the twain shall not always be complementary to each other. There are a lot of great brands which are not good employers, so be wary of them. Okay, but people are saying that if you are fouling up the environment, if you're not bothered about ethics, you are willing to pay your way through corruption. We do not want to work for such a company. Is that correct? Will you work for such a company just because they pay you well? Because I heard salary being an important consideration. But will you work for a company which pays you 2 times the national salary or your market worth, and they indulge in all kinds of malpractices? Will you? If I hear silence, I'm a little worried, because we are hoping that Gen Z, you guys will be far more socially responsible than our generation, which I think it is. Okay. Okay, so empathy, autonomy, all of this is passé, but still very important. Okay, so this we did a nice event. There was a big celebrity lineup. What you're seeing on the screen are people like Navya Naveli, Nanda, Amitabh Bachchan's granddaughter. There is Shri, the cricketer, and some VJs, RJs who actually came. All of them are Gen Z, and therefore they are able to kind of authentically speak about what we are saying. We call it the commandments of happiness, and I won't go through each one of them. But when you see the report, it is all embedded in there, which will come on the last page. So the only thing I want to leave you with before a video at the end is, you got to be the master and you have to be the crafter of the happy workplace. I mean, companies can only do so much. But people like you have to be taking the power into your own hands. There's no organization which is going to say, come from tomorrow, I'll give you necessary authority and power to do so. That is a myth, it doesn't exist. So some, highlights about what you should be doing. One is, I think, for God's sake, please start your careers working in the trenches. You know what that means. You don't want to be only in the CEO's office or in the strategy cell. You'll learn nothing initially. Because those guys also came through the ranks and they worked their way up. So you have to go and work in the front line. If you're joining a sales organization, be with the salespeople. If you're in a manufacturing organization, learn how it is to work in a factory. Don't expect to do intellectually stimulating work from day one. I know you guys are extremely intelligent, you are a brilliant lot, but that you are already. But for you to know how the business operates. There's a lot that you can learn from people who've been in the company. And collaborate with people with diverse talents. Everybody may not be as smart as you, but if they work for 25, 30 years in the company, they are also leaders, they are also parents. There's something that they have, right? There is something to learn from all these people also. You have to energize people, be their lighthouse. Now, it's very easy to sit in a cocoon and say that, look, I want to be brilliant like Elon Musk, and I don't care about the people or the culture or the organization, but you are a leader, so you've got to be their lighthouse. And work for the higher purpose. Do not work, again, for companies which just come out with a great product, but everything around them is wrong. Those kind of businesses will never sustain themselves. So you don't want to be part of that story. And be resilient and nimble-footed. You know, the days when people said, oh, I can only do this, or this is the right thing for me, is over. We all have to be, all of us, at any stage in one's life, you've got to be far more resilient. I'm going to leave you with a final video. And this is something, again, about happiness, but very interesting reflections from a person. This person is not an employee, he's a model. But again, he speaks about how contagious, how important happiness is for an individual and the organization.
Have you ever wondered what happiness really looks like? For many people, it's this gigantic, shiny thing. Like a sun in an endless horizon. There's no doubt that we all want to be happy. But what we don't realize is that happiness isn't as much about adding things as it's about letting go. And no, I don't mean selling your belongings and moving to the mountains. But you go ahead and do that if it really makes you happy. All of us carry our own baggage here. Bad experiences make this baggage heavier. It could be shouting down from the boss. That becomes a road rage on your way back home. That turns into an argument with your wife. That becomes a restless night that you lug around for days to come, or sometimes for a lifetime. Like from the time when a kid at school made fun of you for being too fat or too thin. Good experiences, they make this baggage lighter. A pat on your back from a senior at office becomes the help you give to a complete stranger on the street, to the tight hug your child could really use, to a blissful night's sleep. And just like that, you're ready for life.
Thank you, babe.
This.
Good luck for your meeting. Bye.
Bye. Happiness isn't a thing, it's a place. Where you walk in and out with no baggage. A place that can be accessed from anywhere. Good morning, Vineet.
Ready whenever you are, Jay.
Okay, I'm going to leave this QR code on the screen for you. Please do take a picture of this and get the code. It's like a nice Bible for you Gen Z folks. You know, there's a lot that people are telling in the country. There's a lot of optimism about this country, but there's a lot of things which are not okay with this country as well. So we have to recognize that. There's a clear message coming to leadership, right? In all fronts. I mean, leaders like me, leaders in politics. Generally, people in government are the slowest to learn, but corporates have to do it, otherwise they can't survive, they can't attract the right kind of people. So please have a look at this. The other thing which I just want to leave a thought with you is, I was talking to somebody as I was coming in from the airport about, has the trend changed in IITs about wanting to go only overseas? And I was told about 5 to 10% of people still want to go overseas, which is fine. There's nothing wrong. We all love being in another country for some part of our lives. But there's a lot of stuff happening in India as well. I'm sure you realize it. The winds of change are blowing. And recently I wrote an article about, and this was with no disrespect to the great iconic companies that we all grew up with, right? So I wrote that, you know, when we were all graduating in our MBA days, the whole fountainhead of great ideas came from iconic companies, GE, Unilever, Procter & Gamble. There were not too many technology companies then, but there were banks, and all of these were great icons. But over a period of time, the axis, again, I'm a big believer that the axis of the world has changed to Asia. Some of the cutting edge practices are actually coming from Asian companies. From India, from China, from South Korea. The problem with China and South Korea is because of the language, it's not prevalent. But you're hearing about Indian companies doing some great innovative stuff. We all see it in the startup world. And there are so many leaders who are in the US and in Europe who are of Indian origin. So there's a lot of amazing development happening here. So when you choose a company, please choose carefully. Do not get deluded by just labels of MNC, Indian, and all of that. Look for good companies, companies which have this strong belief system in them, okay? And by all means, do your own research, check around. They are going to do a huge amount of background checks on you, references on you. You should do the same on the companies. And do not join a company because the product brand is great, okay? In fact, I wrote this article, and I can name these two companies because they are no longer in the same management. We are talking about a different avatar of theirs. WeWork and Uber became difficult companies because of toxic behavior by the founder. That's why I wrote that article saying fantastic founders and when to lose them. There was huge amount of controversy about these companies, but the new management has managed to kind of turn around the company. So by just looking at a brand, and today there's a big controversy about another similar organization in the industry, I don't want to name them on stage. Do not go for companies which have a great product brand alone. Because all that technology is sexy and very, very nice. But when you go there, if you find a toxic workplace, you will not last there for long. And all that you've learned, all the skill sets that you've built is of no use when you work in a company which is not the company for the future. So that's all I want to tell you. Thank you very much. It's been my pleasure. Multiple tech glitches. These ladies have been trying to help out, but in spite of that, I think I managed to get my slides moving and close it. Thank you very much for your patience. We probably have 5 minutes for questions. Professor, is it okay? If there are anything that you want to make, even a comment if you don't have a question. And do you think of these things at all? I want to ask you a question. Or do you just look at, oh, you know, these people are in San Jose, it's a very sexy product, great salary for freshers. After 2 years in India, they'll sponsor your H-1B, they'll take you overseas. Is that all that you look for, or something beyond? All quiet on the Western Front. Okay, any last questions, please, or if you have a comment, please do so. If you have some thoughts later on, please do send it to the organizers, and I will respond to each one of you personally by email. Okay, thank you very much. It was a, yeah, sorry, there's somebody, gentleman here. Yeah. India survey. Oh, the internal RPG survey? Yeah, global. It's an interesting question you ask. We don't see too many differences. I think what good companies, good global corporations have done, and again, MNC is a state of mind, right? You can be an MNC in Mumbai, you can be an MNC in Bangalore. You don't have to be in New York. Good global corporations have kind of broken the walls, cultural barriers. There are, of course, subtle differences still. We find that people in our own overseas locations, and we have very different locations. We have US, we have Europe, we have Brazil and Mexico, which are very little more conservative, strictly Catholic kind of countries, have different views on certain things. But generally, overseas, people do not want a command and control culture. I mean, that is passé. They won't even accept it. When you say manager listens to you, freedom, you can argue with your boss, you can dissent with your boss, people wonder what's so big about it. We've been doing it for the last 20 years in the US. That in India is still yet to happen. Companies can talk about everything, but I had a boss, I had a British boss. We could fight with him, and we could enter into a serious argument with him and still go out for a beer with him. So that is still not happening in India. People in authority don't like to be challenged, definitely not in public. So that is where I think the cultural authority-based transition, we found some subtle differences. But we want to break that down also. In fact, we ran a campaign called Call Me Harsh from Harsh Goenka. This whole sirring and yes sir. In fact, I told Professor Pandey also, please drop that Shri in front of my name. But I still see it here. Maybe it's an IIT legacy. It's okay. Yeah, very difficult. Yeah. I think academics, people still look up to teachers as special. I don't think it's going to change. But yeah, academic baggage. But in companies, people have gotten more and more informal. It all depends on you. If you keep quiet, people will call you by default sir or something. I have children who are older than some of my teammates who call me by my first name. So it's okay. That's okay. That's part of life. And that's a nice thing to actually do. So that's the only difference to answer your question. Anybody else? One last question. Sorry, yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
Sir, you mentioned in last that we should not run behind salaries and high packages and initial fresher pay that you told. But
No, I never said that, but you can, yeah, please
We
continue.
live in a societal construct wherein we are judged by what are the basic pays, and despite of being what we are passionate about, we generally tend to follow what happens, what pays us the most.
Absolutely. And I will never tell you not to run behind high salaries. We all like high salaries, don't we? The only point I was trying to make, and I'll give you an example. 2022, we had a sudden outflow of people from our companies to startups. So we went and spoke to each one of them, and we ran a campaign called the RPG Edge. And many of them went to startups which even the proof of concept or the business model was not established. So they said, Venky, we have to go, you're calling us manager, they're calling me VP. I'm getting 50% salary increase, very tempting. So we said, fine. But do you know what they have planned for you? No idea. Do you have work-life balance? No idea. You have flexible work practices? No. Because when you are establishing a startup, there's no concept of work-life balance. Let's face it. There's no startup in India which will promise you work-life balance in the early stages. I like to kind of find one such company. Career planning, what's that? They haven't even established their business model. So we gave them 10 things that you get in RPG. Sabbatical. How do you give a sabbatical in a startup? The company itself has not started performing, right? So people said, oh, we know all that. We know it's a crazy grind, 18-hour workday. So people went. Some people have stayed back. Some people want to come back. So people who don't like toxicity, who don't like 18-hour work days, there's no work-life balance, they said, listen, we are missing RPG, we want to come back. So we are fine. But pay also, what's your name? Makarand, yeah, of course. Makarand, pay is definitely important, but if you're getting paid way, way above your market value, please think about it. You will outprice yourself sooner than later from the market. There's something wrong if, let's say, your salary should be 10 lakhs and somebody is paying you 40 lakhs. There's something wrong. And we have found people who have outpriced themselves and who have come back at lower salaries, or they waited for the next big jump and they've never found it. So there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong in finding a great salary. I'm just saying get the balance right. But if you go only for salary, we found, forget about at your level, we found senior executives who leave us, CEOs and SVPs and all that, who go to places where they don't last for more than 6 months. So therefore the salary was not sustainable for more than 6 months. It happens. It happens to all of us. So you got to look for it's like God doesn't give you everything in one place at the same time. So no job will give you everything in one place at the same time. Just get the balance right, you'll be okay. But if you don't mind that next 5 years I'm going to be, I'll be in a pressure cooker environment, I don't care what happens. By all means, it's your choice. We don't hold back such people. Who are we? But we have a problem when people do apples to oranges comparison. We hire from the tier 1 institutes IMABC and all of these institutes. Sometimes we have questions in our town hall saying, oh, you know, this company pays 30% more than RPG. So we ask them, which company is this? This is a fintech company. How long has it been in existence? 1 year. This is a 200-year-old company, still running, still profitable. We have no debt on our books. We are cash rich. You have to get all of that also right? If you're right now working only with private equity money, you can pay 30-40% more than your market value. So, but you have to check it out. See, there's nothing wrong. Please, by all means, do work for companies like this and figure out what you want in life. If you say, I will separate out my personal life from my work life, that I can tell you is a myth. If you work in a toxic environment and you don't get time to focus on your well-being, it affects you personally. So you cannot separate it out. Nobody can do that in this world. Okay, any last questions? Any controversial comments? No? Yeah, please. Yeah, that gentleman there. I think he'll need a mic.
Hello, sir. Hello. Sir, I have seen about gender equality in your slide, but in many companies in India, there is a ratio about less than 50%, means woman is less than 50% in companies. So while recruiting, many companies, they hire more girls than men. So what's the sense of gender equality in that point?
See, gender equality is easy to do at the entry stage, like you rightly said. You can even hire 60%. But problem is that in legacy companies over 5 decades or 6 decades, the gender diversity, the equation is already lopsided. For you to correct it will take you many years. Or you have to take a lot of people, a lot of women at fresher stage and fast track them, which is what we are trying to do. For example, in IT services and in engineering, now we are taking women who are going to our remote project sites. We are an EPC company, a company called KEC, which is like L&T. We build transmission towers, civil projects and all that. Women are there. It was not the case 5-6 years back. But that percentage cannot become 50% at the company level. It can only be in certain parts. So we are trying to correct, and also what happens is over 20-30 years, women come out of employment due to family reasons, maternity. There's a chunk of women who don't come back after maternity. There's some people who don't come after 2 children, after 25 years. So there is a natural attrition which happens of workforce, women in the workforce. So it's a societal thing. It's much more a problem in India and some of the more traditional societies than in the West. Yeah. So we try to bring as much as possible in some of the sectors that we can, like IT, or in fresher level. Okay, in the interest of time, Professor, I don't want to take up more time, so we should close here. Thank you so much, and thank you everybody. And please take a picture of this. Don't waste this opportunity. Thank you. I'll take this. Thank you. Thank you very much once again.
Mr. Venkatesh has just painted a powerful vision of the workplace of tomorrow, emphasizing the importance of adaptability, innovation, and people-first strategies. Thank you, Mr. Venkatesh, for sharing your wisdom on how we can shape future-ready workplaces.